Did you know Scotland actually has some of the most UFO sightings in the whole world?
Well, they had one of the best UFO sightings. They took photographs of it. It was in that movie,
Bridge
The
Bonnie or
Program.
whatever. What's it called? Bridgebury?
Yeah,
saw it.
something like that. James Fox's documentary, The Program. He was just here promoting it, and they showed the photo, and it's a photo from the 1990s that they got of this thing. Apparently there was 3 photos. Bonnie Bridge. That's
There
it.
you go. Most UFO sightings on the planet.
Did you see the U.S. government just released, apparently by accident, the Project Aqua stuff? Did you see this?
No, what's that?
This is crazy.
Yeah, I guess we're rolling.
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
No. You can. This is just someone just sent me this. This is like
Project Aqua.
Yeah, hold on. They just released, I think, by accident.
How does that happen?
It's Kona Blue. You familiar with this?
No.
Kona Blue is it was a program. Yeah, dude. I'm gonna send this to Homeland Security. Just released this.
Send it to me. I'll send it to Jamie.
And no, I got it right here. I'll just. I don't do email or what. I don't know how to airdrop anything.
You don't do email?
No. I haven't done email in many years.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you exist?
I do text.
Wow. Just text?
Yeah, I don't do email. I don't go on the fucking internet. I don't have a TV. I'm not into that. But anyway. No, that stuff is bad, you know.
Yeah, I guess.
That's my isolation tank. I just stay away from that shit. But anyway.
That's smart. Did you text it to me?
Yeah, I did. I think I did.
It didn't get to me.
Yeah, I just sent it. It's a big thing. Okay, so this is so amazing. So this is in there. They're talking about this, and this was just released. Talking about setting up this program, Kona Blue.
I didn't get it.
This is like a UAP program of some
Yeah,
sort?
the medical division will have a small team of medical analysts under the direction of the chief physician and deputy administrator. They will organize data into a threat analysis based on medical findings, including but not limited to A, deaths and injuries as a result of interaction with advanced aerospace vehicles.
Here it is.
B, medical injuries as a result of other anomalies. C, collateral injuries, psychological effects to family members. So they're admitting that people are dying.
It's just like a tweet from, yes.
Is this it?
A day or two
Yeah.
ago?
What does that mean?
Other information. No one here.
Do you ever wonder if stuff like this is just disinformation?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I wonder if... I wonder a lot of things.
I'm sure you do.
But,
I would always assume that a lot of this stuff is nonsense.
yeah, here's what we know, is that U.S. servicemen have died as a result of contact with or being in the proximity of these vehicles. And we know that because there are a lot of suits working their way through the VA system
Yeah?
where families, you know, can't get compensated for the deaths or injuries to loved ones. And
Because
that-
it's all under wraps, top secret.
Well, that's just a fact, okay, that is happening. So if there's, I guess, you know, when there are measurable physical effects of a phenomenon, we can say conclusively the phenomenon is real.
Right.
And so, yeah.
But
I mean,
isn't
it is real. I mean, I guess we're sort of past the point of like, is it real? Yeah, it's real.
It's real in that there's these things that are moving in very bizarre ways, and they have these propulsion systems that violate what we know about propulsion systems. Retrieving data across dimensional space-time, develop remote viewing, comms, and countermeasures, determine baseline for physical transport across dimensional space-time barrier, rapid response medical teams for UFO interaction events. So how did they do this accidentally? Study conscious interactions with and control of technology.
So I got this from someone in the U.S. government who's well, look, let me just start by saying I don't know anything, but he sent me this. The above is 100% legit. I was read into this program but told never to tell anyone. It's now been released. As you can see, It began as a result of my old program, AATIP. I signed a document saying I would never talk about Kona Blue and similar efforts. I can't believe that AARO would have released it. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, here's what we do know is that there's enough going on in the skies, but not just the skies, underwater, that the U.S. military has been forced to respond to it. So, like, move aircraft from one place to another because there are too many of these objects in the sky. That's actually happened. Chris Mellon just wrote a long piece about it. So it's real. The government is not controlling it. In fact, it's forcing the government, DOD, to respond. And we know that there is a real effort and has been underway for a long time to keep the public from knowing about it. But that's all known. That's established. I don't think any rational person would deny that. The question is, like, what is it actually? I mean, now is sort of the point where you have to ask, like, what is this? And, so that's the
How much of it do
conversation
you think is ours?
Well, none of it's ours.
None of it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, clearly, the U.S. government is huge. It's the largest human organization. I think there are 2 million federal employees and another 10 million federal contractors, so who are effectively government employees but don't have civil service protection, for example. So that's 12 million people in a country of 340 million working for the federal government. So it's kind of hard to overstate how big the federal government is and how well funded. And so to say the government this, the government that, no, of course, it's people within the government. But yeah, they're working on all kinds of things, obviously, that are classified. But in general, no, they can't control these objects. So no, it's not American technology.
Well,
or Russian or Chinese. It predates, all of that.
Well, some of it does, right? Like, for sure, the Kenneth Arnold sightings, that was really early on. That was like the early 1950s. He was seeing these flying saucers, these discs that were moving over mountains.
Well, right. I mean, the prophet Ezekiel writes about it in the first chapter, wheels in the sky.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. Boy, when you
Well,
read
it is
that,
crazy. If you read it, it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
a wheel
so,
within a
and not
wheel.
just, the Hebrew scriptures, like it's all over every.
The Vedic texts.
Of course. So these are spiritual phenomenon. There's no evidence they're from another planet. I mean, I think that's the that's the lie, that they're from Mars. Look, space, the atmosphere is really well monitored, right? Both for defense reasons, but also because, like, it'd be nice to know when asteroids are coming. And there's no evidence, has never been any evidence that there are lots of these objects, these vehicles coming into our atmosphere from somewhere else, some other planet. There's no evidence of that at all. So they're from here, and they've been here for thousands of years, whatever they are. And it's pretty clear to me that they're spiritual entities, whatever that means. They're supernatural, and which is to say, supernatural means above the natural, above the observable nature. And they don't behave according to the laws of science as measured by people, and they've been here for a long time. And there's a ton of evidence they're under the ocean and under the ground. So, like, with that fact set, what do you conclude?
When did you start having this opinion that they were spiritual and that they've always been here? Like, when did this?
Well, I didn't know anything about the topic until 2017. And
was that after the New York Times piece?
No, it was before. It was before, and the things that I saw. I mean, I was and am still a very conventional person. I mean, I'm 54. I grew up in this country in California, which was like every assumption about America I bought completely, just completely, and I thought that everyone who questioned those assumptions was bad. I just bought into the system completely without even thinking about it. And I imagined that I was like some kind of free thinker and, I'm going against the grain. But like my core assumptions were the assumptions fed to me by the culture and the government. And I didn't even realize it. But anyway, I'd never really thought about UFOs at all. And I'd been in journalism since I was a kid. So, of course, I'd run into a lot of people who had crazy views on a lot of different topics. UFOs, 9/11, circumcision, like every whack job in the world you run into when you're covering stuff.
Fluoride,
Right? I just brushed with non-fluoride toothpaste this morning.
Me too.
Exactly. Exactly. But probably unlike you, I didn't have any opinions like that. I was like, fluoride, come on. 9/11, shut up.
Yeah.
UFOs, you're fucking crazy. You know what I
Right,
mean? I just
right.
I had this reflexive. I'm ashamed of it. I'm not bragging about it, but it was 2017, and really it was the Trump campaign. It wasn't that I was like so in love with Trump, though I've always liked Trump because he's like hilarious and charming and all that. But I wasn't like a Trumper or anything. But it was watching that campaign, and particularly his claim that they were spying on him, and I was like, really? You're not the intel services and federal law enforcement, FBI, do not spy on presidential campaigns. Like, that's so out of the realm. That's so crazy. Like, that could never happen because, of course, there's no democracy in a system like that. And fundamentally, we're a democracy, an imperfect one. It kind of lumbers along, but like it's not fake. And then that turned out to be true. And I knew it was true. And that just blew my mind. So I began a process still ongoing of reassessing a lot of other things. Like, okay, well, if that was not true, what else is not true? And what else that they told me was a conspiracy theory might actually have some basis in fact. And then someone from, a DOD employee reached out to me and said, actually, there's a ton of evidence that this UFO thing is real. And really? And so I started doing segments on it when I worked at the TV channel. And there was like a lot of mockery, but I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to do this. And then, of course, the second you start, as you know better than anybody, you start talking about something, then people reach out to you, and some of them are deranged, but some of them aren't at all. So I just started getting a lot of information from people and meeting with people, mostly in private, come to my house, let's talk. And I decided on the basis of what they told me, and then I talked to a lot of people about it, that actually this is really a very heavy-duty question, actually. It's not the little green men question. It's like a much bigger question. And it's really bad. It's really dark. And then I stopped. Then I was like, I don't want to know anymore because it's not helping me at all as a person. And I don't
What information did you get that made you feel like it's dark?
What's so dark? Well, first of all, the deception is always bad. Like lying is bad in it. And it's bad not just in a legal sense in that it can be illegal to lie, but it's bad. It's like bad for you. Like it rots you. Like being a liar makes you a bad person. When you lie, you are serving evil. There's a moral quality to it that's inescapable and very obvious, and only like advanced civilizations ignore that. Lying is bad. And so if you have lying at scale, which we have on this topic, it's inherently bad. Okay, so that's the first level. The deeper level is so if they're spiritual beings, which I believe they are, like it's a binary. They're either, you're on team good or team bad. You can assign any name to it you want, but like, what are these things? Are they good or bad? And I think some of them are bad. And if the U.S. government knows that, or the people within the U.S. government know that, then they're serving a bad force. And
Well, when you say
think about that for a minute.
spiritual, like what makes you draw that conclusion that they're spiritual?
What's the obvious? I mean, spiritual may be the wrong word. Supernatural. They're beyond nature as we understand it. I mean, obviously they are. I mean, just chart their physical behavior. It doesn't, it goes outside of what we understand about physics. No visible means of propulsion, coming at indescribable speed, hitting the ocean, continuing at speeds that are impossible undersea. I mean, in other words, if I take a 9mm round or 7.62 by 39 and shoot you at 50 yards underwater in a swimming pool, and it's even more intense in salt water because it's denser, you could catch the bullet if it even makes it to you, right? So if you have a craft, any object underwater that's traveling at 500 knots as measured by sonar, right there you're challenging our understanding of physics. Like, what is that? How can that be? So yeah,
They've tracked that? They've tracked things going 500 knots under the sea?
Yeah, really. Yeah, much faster than any object can actually go undersea. Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on underwater, and a lot. And there's video of these things coming out of the sky into the water and also emerging from the water.
It's nuts.
But that's that's alien, dude. It's alien weaponry.
You might be onto something.
They're coming from under the sea.
Here's the
and
thought.
they're giving us weapons. I'm all about USOs now, dude.
Yeah.
I'm all
Undersea UFOs.
It's unidentified submersible objects.
Yeah.
That's where they are, dude.
Yeah.
They're at the floor
That's
of
what
this.
Cat Williams said. Yeah. We were talking about sonar hearing
That just
devices.
touched my heart where I'm like,
Yeah.
do we both have the same crazy theory?
He said, "Is this correct or incorrect?"
Dude, I love that.
We were talking about space, about how we know more about space than we do about the ocean, which is true. And he was saying that those underwater listening devices were most likely so that they could hear UFOs moving around.
Dude.
Because if there really are, imagine if there really are bases under the ocean and they know about them.
Well, here's the thing that if they know about them, fuck you, you should tell us. But here's what I think.
Tell us.
The theory I had, because I heard about, I listened to an episode of Last Podcast on the Left where they were talking about USOs, and I got super into it because I was high enough. You know, when the song hits correctly, sometimes
Yes.
the podcast will do that. And I was listening to Last Podcast on the Left, and it hit where I go like, it unlocked because they had this theory that they talked about that the millions of years it took us to crawl out of the water and evolve into fucking whatever we are, like monkeys and then Neanderthals and then humans, all that millions of years, there were things under the ocean evolving for millions of years with technology and stuff, and we're just up on the roof.
But yeah, the problem is we've never seen anything other than us that manipulates its environment. The intelligent things that we found in the ocean that are real are dolphins and orcas.
Yeah.
And whales. But like,
And what about
dolphins and orcas are crazy intelligent.
but like octopuses too,
Yes,
right?
that's true too.
Yeah.
But none of them, the octopuses are very smart, but none of them have ever figured out how to make things. Like make houses and cars and ships, and it's all like they're out in the wild. There's no houses. I used to do a bit about how dangerous the ocean is because there's no doors. I'm like, there's no doors. No matter what, it's just
There's
fucking
caves.
sharks and crabs and no doors.
Yeah.
And everywhere you look, everything is eating everything.
Yeah.
It's literal murder soup because they all eat each other.
It's a ladder of eating.
Yeah.
Just everything goes up and eats something.
And at the top, you have killer whales that are eating whales. They eat everything.
But what if we're missing something? What if we don't see it? What if we are too stupid? What if we're just like rock monkeys and they're just like, they can't see down here. These guys have no fucking clue. You know when you're in a tinted car and someone's like looking in the window and you're looking at him like, look at this fucking idiot. He doesn't even see me. Maybe what if that's us with the aliens in the water? What if we're like looking down there in the water and they're like, these fucking idiots. Even when they come down here, they can't see shit.
That's possible. It's possible that they also can be completely invisible. Like,
Yeah.
We're really close to being able to do that now with stuff. They figured out how to like project what's behind things on screens. So you can like theoretically have a vehicle that as it's moving through an environment, it's projecting what's there.
That's some predator shit.
Yeah, like literally, that's a concept that they're working on. They're working on it for aircrafts. They're working on it for vehicles.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's so terrifying.
And that's just step one. Step two would be do something that alters reality around the thing so it's invisible.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's what. So you go into the ocean, and we're like down there, and we're so limited because we can't breathe down there. So we're limited. We're in like submarines, or we have robots, and it's just like a fucking ring. Every footage under the sea looks like a Ring doorbell, where it's just like, and we don't know what the fuck they could be behind it. Like these idiots.
There's so little of it that we've explored. There's only like 10% of the ocean floor that we've explored.
10%.
That's so crazy.
10%. And then the thing that they always see UFOs or USOs over water, it's like the high frequency that they see them, and then they just fucking just down in there, and they're like, follow me, bitch. And we're like, we can't breathe. You know, space or the ocean, we can't breathe down there. We have a limited amount of room we can move around in.
Just the idea of something being here the whole time is so creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but us being... What's comforting is we're all so stupid we don't see it.
Right.
Imagine if you had a friend that's like, hey, like if a couple people could see it, you would be terrified.
Imagine if society had gotten to a point at one point in time where artificial intelligence and human brains mixed. And we created a super class of species, like a new thing that's both technological and biological.
Yeah.
And only a small number of beings got that.
I mean,
And those beings, for some reason, left us here the way we are.
Yeah, like
And that's what we're seeing with these aliens. Those are humans that went down the road that we're going down right now.
and they were like, dude, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, and then maybe there was like all the disasters that happened, like the Younger Dryas impact, the asteroids hit, and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and level society. But they escape because they're interdimensional travelers.
Yeah, they're
now.
like, we're gonna get the fuck out of here. It's like
Yeah.
leaving a house. You're just like,
Yeah.
I don't care about this
Shoot.
house anymore.
Now
Yeah.
we're somewhere else. Shoot. They don't need food anymore. They probably work on nuclear energy or something. There's probably some crazy power
Or like
source.
antimatter.
Yeah,
it's like a thing that we would never even think of.
Yeah, they don't need to breed.
The thing that the Jimmy Carter brief. Did you know about this when he where they briefed him and it like broke him emotionally? Where he was like so upset where they were like, hey, by the way, they've been here forever. Like he was like a deeply religious man.
Well, Tucker Carlson's talked about this recently.
Really?
Yeah, Tucker Carlson said that he believes that they've always been here, and he believes that it's probably he was talking about like good and evil, and that we know that good exists and we know that evil exists.
Sure.
We know that people are capable of doing evil. Like these are real forces in the world.
Yeah.
And what people are saying is that these experiences that some people are having with like benevolent ones, that this is the stories of demons. This is the stories of the Bible. That there's races that are evil. There's alien races that don't give a fuck. Just like there's praying mantises.
Yeah.
That eat hummingbirds.
Or like in nature.
Just because they're super smart.
There are creatures that are aggressive, that are smart, like a hyena, and then there's like animals that are aggressive and just powerful, like lions. Like,
and think about us, the smartest animal on the planet that we know of, and what do we do to chickens?
fuck them. No.
Oh, those chickens.
I go, no, you don't fuck. Oh, goddamn. This is where my whole world unravels. I go, Joe, I fuck chickens, dude. I don't know. I didn't think you were going to get me like that.
They're going to tell you they're going to issue you a report, and it's going to be loaded, and everybody's freaking out. It's going to be the greatest thing. It's going to be total disclosure. And then they're going to put something out. It'll look like somebody shot it with a dadgum 12 gauge. It's just going to have holes in it. It's all redacted. And I said, and they're not going to put it out this week. It'll be weeks later. And that's exactly what they did. They had a report I felt like had some information in that was new to the public, and they did what they always do. They hid it, covered it up.
What was like the first introduction where you had an idea that there's something going on?
When I started asking questions, and we just get to run around.
Like
and
what kind of questions?
Like, what is this? Where are you seeing these things? And we would get people. I had an interesting meeting in my office with some people that were nationally known, and they came by to see me, and they just wanted to talk to me about it. And I was, and they started telling me things. And then I had a group come to my house. I said, y'all just come by the office in D.C. and we'll talk. And they said, we don't feel comfortable doing that. And they came by the house, and they said, can we hook up to your television? And I said, well, sure, and they hooked up the computer to it, and they were showing me objects that were flying at, and granted, I'm not an astrophysicist by any stretch of imagination, but they were showing me things that were flying at speeds that were just that nothing compares, and the angles that they were taking would literally, and I've said this before, and it grosses people out, but it would turn you or me into a ketchup package. I mean, you go this way, and then boom, you're going this way, and we have no capability of any of it. And now I've been briefed so many times and different groups. We scrub missions because these things are out there. And then we tell everybody that's involved to keep your mouth shut. And then if you're a pilot and you come back and say, hey, I've seen this, you immediately pulled off the flight line. I'm not a pilot or military person, but flight line. is what I call it. They're not able to fly, and they're given a psych evaluation, and they're given an 8-hour. They call it a debriefing. I've been told by some of the officers that have been involved, it's really just an interrogation, and then you got that hanging on your record. And,
so it influences them to stop.
Oh, they
asking
just keep their
questions.
mouth shut. I literally had a guy tell me, Joe, that he said his recorder. It was an older style plane, and I think he said it was close to his right knee. And when he got that on his recorder, he started smashing it with his right knee to discombobulate it, so that it wasn't even, because he didn't want anything. He did not need it. He saw it. He didn't need it on his record. Even if he saw it and it was on a dadgum tape, they drag you in. And so, myself, Luna, and Matt Gates went down to Florida to be briefed by. Matt was told that some pilots had seen some things and they had some photographs, and so we go down there and again we go in. I told Matt, I said, Matt, they don't give up this stuff easy. We're going to go down there, and I have a bad feeling they're going to turn us out. Well, we went down there, and Joe, they briefed us on some very very serious issues that they were dealing with the Chinese and communist infiltration and things going on around Florida in the ocean, but they did never have they wouldn't bring the pilots in. And Matt said, "Hey, I understand all this, but this is not why we came down here." And Matt's you can say what you want to about Matt Gates, but he's a great orator and he's a great attorney, and he just started flailing on them. And he told them, he said, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to jerk me around." And I said, "I'm going to subpoena you all. We're going to call you all back to Washington." And I remember looking over in the corner at the suits, and I said, I called them spooks because they were obviously some sort of military intelligence or CIA. And I leaned over to Matt and I said, "The spooks are getting nervous, brother," because they were kind of shifting around. And they shut us down. They said, "No, we're not going to do it." And Matt said, "I'm calling whoever Big Air Force was." Matt was on one of the military committees, and he called. And hour later, they stuck us up in this room and had microphones under the desk. I remember Luna reached under and unplugged them. And they had a nice fruit tray that you paid for it, taxpayers. Thank you very much. So I went and ate like a jackass eating sawbriars. I was just eating. I didn't care. And so finally, he came back in an hour, and the guy says, "I don't know who you all called, but you're going to get your briefing. They're bringing the pilots in." And literally, they brought these pilots in, and they were in their flight gear, and they had just come out of the planes, and they were the ones, and they described things, and it's been reported now. It's been reported in public, but it was these craft that were hovering for extended periods of times and could shoot straight up at incredible speeds that we don't have capabilities of doing. And those are the kind of thing. And too, this was military people. These were top people. These are like the equivalent, not, they just some of our top people. And I know folks are going to say, well, it's probably the Russians. Well, if it's the Russians, dadgummit, they wouldn't be tied up down in Ukraine for how many years? And Putin's such an egomaniac, he'd fly a saucer to Pennsylvania Avenue, get out and probably wrestle Trump in the front yard or something, bare-chested, ride a unicorn or something, I don't know. If it's China, they'd own us, even more than they already do. And then people say, well, it's ours, Birch. It's just ours. They don't want to release it. Well, think about this. President Trump, and he should have, and I give him great credit for that pilot that got knocked down over in Iran, we spent untold millions of dollars to bring that cat home, and we should have, because it sends a message to our enemies, and it sends a message to our fighting men and women that we're not going to leave you behind, as many presidents have done many times. There's no way on God's green earth that they would risk a $500 million aircraft with something flying around it and risk those guys' life and all that training to put these guys in harm's way. And that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, these things are buzzing cockpits. I mean, it's not an everyday occurrence. It's in certain areas, and that's where the deep water thing comes in, the deep water bases. I was sort of misquoted. I was just telling what I was told, and but it makes a lot of sense that these deep water areas are where we see a lot of sightings, and we've seen craft underwater that do something over 200 miles an hour that are on the sonar pickup are as big as a dadgum football field. And the best we don't have anything big as a football field. Maybe in length, but not underwater anyway. And the best we can do is maybe upper 30 mile an hour, maybe something like that. I don't know. But 200 miles an hour, that's just out of the question. And these things don't have a heat signature. And I hope though that they release some of the footage that we've seen and some that we haven't, that we've been rumored that's out there. What I'm afraid though, it's going to get so sanitized and it's going to get cleaned up.
What's the most compelling modern thing that you've seen?
Oh my God, I can't talk about it. Unfortunately, this is my frustration, Joe, because I know what I've seen. I know what my colleagues have seen, right? And to this day, there's video that's coming in on a regular and routine basis that is very, very compelling. And if
how do they hide this stuff from the general public?
Well, we have classified systems. We hide a lot of
but
things.
how is it getting filmed? Is any of it getting filmed by the general public, or is all this military stuff?
So let me backtrack a little bit. There's a general public that is filming stuff, but from a Department of Defense perspective, our focus now. Arrow is a different story, but when I was in the government, we had to be very, very careful of something we called intelligence oversight. Back in the 60s and 70s, the U.S. intelligence apparatus, particularly in the Department of Defense, was kind of naughty. They were doing things they shouldn't do. They were spying on students and they were spying on American citizens.
You
and they
don't
were doing
say.
things. Yeah,
Crazy.
Right? Say it isn't so. So Congress passed some laws and said, okay, you can no longer do this kind of stuff on American citizens, right? You can't conduct intelligence operations on American citizens. You can't do it. It's illegal, right? Okay. So you have Executive Order 12333 and all these other rules and laws and DOD 5240.1 that all come out and say no mas. So Department of Defense is supposed to focus on military. That's it. You don't bring in U.S. persons' information and ingest them into a Department of Defense database, especially a Department of Defense intelligence database. That's a super no-no. That's called U.S. persons information, and it's pretty much verboten. So our focus was looking specifically at military-sourced information. I was not focusing at all on what the private citizens were seeing because at the end of the day, we couldn't use it. You can't do anything with the data.
And it seems like you got plenty of compelling footage from the military.
Overwhelming. There's absolutely no doubt that we didn't have to look at civilian data because we had better collection sensor systems from the military that was looking at stuff and giving us better insight.
If you can't tell us about, can you give us some sort of an understanding of like what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Without being specific?
Yeah, let me see. Okay, yeah. There is a video, high-resolution video, of I can't say what platform it was taken from. I can't say where it was taken from.
Okay.
But an object that, do you know how large an offshore oil derrick is? They're huge, right?
Yeah.
They're almost like a small city, right? They're like one city block. They're huge. They're enormous things. There is a video that shows one of these objects underwater that goes by. The speed was calculated between 450 and 550 knots underwater, and it was bigger than the offshore derrick that it was passing because you could see in the video the offshore derrick, and you could see this thing zip right by it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of them, right? A lot of them are reported as being transmedium.
Right. So that exactly. Why do we use the term UAP, right? Now it's unidentified anomalous phenomenon because it's all domain. Initially it was UFO, unidentified flying object. And for several reasons they changed the name. One of them, not just because of stigma like people think, but because the word flying object means flight. And
Right.
you have to have wings to fly. That's flight. And these things don't have wings. So that term, we're not even sure is even accurate anymore because they're not necessarily flying. We see them underwater. We see them super high altitude. So the term was changed to unidentified aerial phenomenon. But again, that did not encompass all the observations we were seeing. So now the term UAP, I think the latest description of it is unidentified anomalous phenomenon to help describe this multi-domain or transmedium characteristic that we are beginning to see and record that these things can do. And that is, I'm going to, if I can digress for a second, because that's super important, Joe. we have transmedium vehicles, right? We have things like seaplanes, and it's a plane and it can float on water. But let's face it, a seaplane is neither a really good plane or a really good boat because it's a compromise. It's a design compromise between an object that you want to perform in the air and in the sea. And that's why it's neither really good at both. Same thing with, for example, the space shuttle. It goes out into space and it can glide down, but it's not a very good airplane, comes down like a brick,
Right.
because there's design compromises and performance compromises. But what we are seeing doesn't have any of that attributable compromise. It's not, these objects aren't slowing down. They're not changing their performance capabilities. They can do the same thing that we're seeing in the air and possibly in space and even underwater. So that is a fundamentally different type of technology than we are used to dealing with.
Is the assumption that they are doing something with space, time, and gravity around them rather than using something like a jet propulsion engine that blasts fire out the back and it makes it go fast forward?
Right.
That they're doing something that alters the gravity around them.
Yeah. So
and that's why they can go through everything.
Yeah. So we had some of the best scientists on the team, folks like Dr. Hal Puthoff and some other folks that I'm not allowed to say their names, Dr. Eric Davis and some others, that were doing the calculations. Mathematical calculations on how this is possible, and the consensus was by the scientists, not me, because I'm not a physics expert, and I'm not a astrophysicist. They were saying that. So let me back up here. Initially, the government for years was trying to identify the different exotic technologies that could explain the different performance characteristics, and it was during the ATIP years that the scientists had this consensus that if you had one type of technology, if you could do one thing, all these other observables now become possible. Kind of think of like a unifying theory. And so if you had the ability to create this bubble around you in a localized area that insulated you from the effects of Earth's gravity. Now, what is gravity? People think that, when I drop my glasses, that's gravity. That's not gravity. That's an effect of gravity. Gravity is the warping of space-time. And that's important because people you hear the term thrown around a lot, but they don't realize that space and time are actually connected. They are one and the same. They're opposite sides, if you will, of the same coin. And so you can't have one without the other. And so you have this ability to create a bubble around you that insulates you from the warping of space-time, let's say in this case Earth's gravity or something like that. Then the way you experience time inside that bubble is perhaps fundamentally different than the way you might experience space-time outside that bubble because you're not subject to the effects of gravity, which would explain potentially why things don't need wings and why they don't need propulsion systems like that, right? So it's a completely different way of looking at how we understand physics and how we as humans move about. Everything we do is fundamentally force equals mass times acceleration. Right? F equals ma, right? Mass times acceleration, and you get force. This may be something a little bit different. This is not using again conventional thrust, or if I Newtonian, right? If I push this way, I have an equal and opposite reaction that way, right? That's how.
Are there any theories as to how it's accomplishing this?
There is actually. Dr. Hal Puthoff about 3 years ago gave a speech on this. A very interesting lecture about this technology. And if you ever have the chance, you really should have him on because he's an incredible human being. He's also the one who helped start the government's remote viewing program and a bunch of other stuff for the government. He's been involved in a lot of our nation's probably most classified efforts. But he was working with us on ATIP as one of our scientists. And he gave a lecture about 3 years ago to some other scientists about the specifics on how this is possible. I am not a scientist, so I'm definitely not going to speak on behalf of Hal Puthoff because I'm sure I will muck it up. But I do recall a time when he came into our skiff and gave us about a 3-hour lecture on this unifying theory. And at that moment, it was very much for us the epiphany that a lot of us had been searching for. He's like, look, at the end of the day, this is how it's possible. And that was kind of this, wow. So it's really not.
Can you give us a
voodoo magic.
moron's view of how it's possible?
Yeah.
Explain it to someone like me.
Yeah, well, I'm in that category, Joe. So, you know,
We're speaking the same language.
Yes, sir. Yeah, single syllable grunts, right? Yeah. So you have an object like this cup on your table, and you want it to be insulated from the effects of Earth's gravity. So you create this bubble artificially using a certain energetic source at a certain frequency, and it interacts with certain material, certain metamaterial. And I got to be careful exactly what I say, but certain skin of the craft, this aluminum via the cup here, and all of a sudden, whoop, you have this bubble around you where what you see on the outside is not necessarily what you see on the inside. In fact, may I do a little more drawing for you? Okay, and forgive me, I'm not an artist, so I'm going to do this upside down for you, and then I'm going to kind of scoot this just a little here. All right, let's do this. So, unfortunately, I know your audience can't see this, but actually it's
That's
probably
okay.
good.
Some people can. There's a video form of it.
Well,
I'm sure this will get on. It'll be on YouTube as well.
It's probably good that they don't, because I'm not an artist. But let's say this is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional space.
Okay.
And in essence,
so what you've done is essentially you created a three-dimensional looking grid stacked. It looked like stacked boxes on top of each other.
yeah, right. And so you have location A and location B. And let's say I go from Los Angeles to Baltimore.
Okay.
And it takes me 5 hours to fly at 500 miles an hour. That's a function of distance over time. And in essence, you can mark that linearly like this. So I fly, it takes me 5 hours, there I am.
Okay.
If you had the ability to compress space-time, and not a lot, just a little bit, and you were able to allow these points to be a little closer together, now in essence, what took you, let's say, 5 hours and 500 miles an hour to do it, you can do it in 1 hour, and you can do it in much less time. But to the observer outside, because we're still in the same universe, we would see something like that. We would see this incredible hopscotching ability to, if you will, take a shortcut through space-time. And so what would appear to be instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity, and other things, now becomes a reality. And so that is fundamentally what the scientists had discovered. And so it seems like science fiction, but when you understand the mathematics and some of the theorem that they've proposed, a lot of these other observables become possible.
So these are essentially just theoretical explanations of how these things are moving.
Yeah, and I'm not a scientist. I want to be very careful. I don't want to misrepresent anything. There's a whole lot of other stuff that if you can do that, all of a sudden now makes sense and may describe the observations that people are seeing and why they're kind of hard to see and they seem obscure.
Right.
And so I think from a governmental perspective, that it was kind of a revelatory moment for the folks in our program.
So they realized one of the reasons why these things are weird looking is because they're creating. You want a light?
Do you mind? I'm sorry.
Yeah, take this.
Thank you.
So the back thing, the other side. Push that down. There you go. Bam.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So how much of this is theoretical and how much of this is observed from recovered vehicles?
I am not allowed to talk about what the government may or may not have in its possession, other than that so I went through a very lengthy Pentagon review process. Recently, I wrote, I won't talk about it here, but I wrote something, and I had to go through Pentagon to have a review process, and it took almost a year. In this thing I wrote, I talk about up to the part I can talk about, and they approved for me to talk about up to that point. When it comes to what the government may or may not have in its possession, all I can simply say is that there is very compelling evidence to suggest that the U.S. government is in absolute possession of exotic material that is not made by humans. Now, beyond that, I can't really expound upon. I haven't been given permission to talk about it. But what I can say is what I've already said for the record, which has been approved by the Pentagon. I won't get in trouble by saying it. is that we are there's very compelling data to suggest that we are in possession of.
Why is the
material.
Pentagon teasing us? Why do they tell you? Why are they allowing you to say we are in possession of something that was not made by human beings, but not allowed to elaborate, not allowed to show these very compelling videos that you're talking about that you've seen?
I don't. Well, two reasons. I don't think they have a choice. I think with now the introduction of cell phones and Ring cameras, the cat's out of the bag. It's the worst kept secret at this point. Two, there is a faction, unlike before in the Cold War, I believe there is a faction of people inside the government that do want this conversation to occur. But equally, there's still a faction of people that are very mad with me.
You're an Applebee's guy.
I love Applebee's.
Really?
Yeah.
What's it about Applebee's?
I love the neighborhood, man. I love
The atmosphere.
I love the atmosphere. I love the drink they give you that comes with a gummy shark.
Which one's that?
I don't know what it's
It's
called.
like one of them signature cocktails.
Yeah, but it's so good. And they have a special Mountain Dew at Applebee's.
They do?
Yeah.
It's special?
Yeah, it's special. It's only in Applebee's.
What's the special?
You looking for another one of
No,
those?
I got this one right here.
It's like a raspberry flavor, I think. It's called like Space Punch.
Darkberry Bash.
Darkberry Bash. It's called actually NASA uses orange filters on Mars Bash. I swear to God, check that shit out. Look into it.
They might.
guys.
I think what Jamie is saying about color correction, though, is accurate.
Yeah, like
And
when I was just looking at the photos, they all come black and white, I think.
Right. I think the thing is that they're just getting data. They're getting data, and that data has to be interpreted into an image. And it's a lot more complicated than like you taking a picture on your iPhone and texting it to me, and I get it, and it's in full resolution.
Look up Mars.
iMessage.
Look up Mars. Copy and paste. Look up NASA. Copy and paste.
NASA copy.
Let's see if this works.
I'll add Mars.
Just add Mars for a buzzword.
What do you think about all this UFO disclosure shit? Are you paying attention to it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I think it's pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Like how little people seem to care.
Because we already know.
I know, but it's interesting that like there wasn't like some moment where people like were like, "Holy shit, aliens are real." There
Pretty
wasn't a
soon
moment.
that's coming.
You think? I think it's because of this slow trickle. It's going to be we just accept it.
Well, they try to normalize it with like War of the Worlds, which is like the War of the or Battle of Los Angeles and shit like that. That was a real fucking thing that happened. The pictures of Battle Los Angeles is crazy.
What happened exactly?
There's
Battle
this,
of Los Angeles?
there's this big object in the sky, and we're shooting machine guns at it. We
What year
got
was this?
spotlights. This is like in the 50s, maybe.
I remember seeing it. There's this photo.
Look at this shit.
Wow.
So we're putting fucking
they have
rounds on
these
this fucking thing.
Spotlights on this thing in the sky.
Look at the rounds.
Right, but what is it? What is it that they see? That's weird. That all you can see is spotlights.
1947, it says in the corner.
Boy, that looks like a fucking flying saucer.
Look at
That
in
one?
the middle
Yeah.
and look at but those things around it, those are fucking like Ma Deuce rounds. Like they're shooting at this fucking thing. They don't know what it is.
Well, you know that there's a famous story from the Soviet Union that these guys shot at a UFO and it turned them into stone.
Is it true?
I don't know. The CIA investigated it. Here, I'll send it to you, Jamie, because I sent it to Jeremy Corbell. That's what I asked him.
Fuck, I should have had links, Jamie. God damn it.
Well, this is the only link I have. It's
CIA UFO turned into
You
stone.
can find that stuff.
You're definitely
find
on a
it?
watch list, Jamie.
yeah. So there's literally like a CIA document about it. That these guys supposedly shot at a low-flying spaceship. Look at it. According to the KGB materials, a quite low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer appeared above a military unit that was conducting routine training maneuvers. For unknown reasons, somebody unexpectedly launched a surface-to-air missile and hit the UFO. It fell to Earth not far away, and 5 short humanoids with large heads and large black eyes emerged from it. It is stated in the testimonies by the 2 soldiers who remained alive that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much bigger and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles.
Poles.
Yeah, only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade and were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived.
No shit.
The KGB report goes on to say that the remains of the UFO and the petrified soldiers were transferred to a secret scientific research institution near Moscow. Specialists assume that a source of energy that is still unknown to Earthlings instantly changed the structure of the soldiers' living organisms, having transformed it into a substance whose molecular composition is no different from that of limestone. Oh my God.
It turned them into limestone.
Turned them literally into limestone.
And this is a CIA paperwork?
Well, this is, they're reading from a KGB file, right? So it's just, go to the very bottom of that again, Jamie, the very bottom of that. It says, one of the things that says, the CIA representative stated, if the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing case. The aliens possess such weapons and technology that go beyond all our assumptions. They can stand up for themselves if attacked. But the thing is, they're saying if the file corresponds to reality, that means there's a question.
If this is real, they're tough.
Yeah, they can fuck with you.
What year was this released?
I don't know.
Source is a newspaper.
1991?
93.
93.
So there's all these disclosures that are going on right now, and they're very, very fascinating because it's hard to know what's true and what's not true. But it's interesting that they're talking about it. But no one showed me anything yet. I'm waiting for them to show me things. I've seen some things already, like those videos that they took off the FLIR video and the Go Fast video, and these videos of these things where these fighter pilots are trying to track this thing, and it's like zipping across the sky, and they're like, what the fuck is that? I've seen a few of those. I've talked to 2 different fighter pilots that have had encounters.
And they're all in.
They're all in. I think there's a real thing going on. What that real thing is what's confusing to me. I think some of it has to be ours. I think some of it has to be like super advanced drone technology that we don't want everyone knowing about, and it's probably some black ops shit. But I don't think that's all of it. I think it's also possible that we've been visited. It just makes sense. It sounds so stupid. That's part of the problem of even talking about it, because it sounds dumb. Because there's no evidence. So you have to believe in something where there's no evidence of it other than like some blurry photographs. But then when you just think about the size of the universe itself and the fact that we exist here on this planet. We're real. We know we're real.
What if it's fucking a Martha or whatever, and they're from fucking the center of the earth, and the holes in the poles or whatever, north and south, and that's where the holes are, and that's why Google Maps blocks it all out and all that shit.
Well, that would be a great theory before cell phones like that.
But it's not there. You still can't see it.
Yeah, but you can with satellites and also flight patterns. Like the people that
copy and paste. By the way,
you know who doesn't think the world is flat? Pilots.
True. Or anyone who's been in an airplane.
They fly around, these motherfuckers. They know where they have to go. They know the flight patterns.
And you look at it.
Yeah, you look at it. Yeah. Also, by the way, everything's round. Go out in the fucking sky and look at Mars, look at Jupiter, get a telescope, look at all the stars. Notice how everything's round? Seems like there's a pattern going on. Yeah. Why would this be different?
This ass is round.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so weird, man. I don't know. And you're talking about the oh shit moment. I think we've been so like normalized to it, like E.T., all this shit, growing up watching this shit, to where it's like, yeah, no shit. Everyone, no matter what the surveys say or anything, everyone thinks there's like something going on.
Everyone, yeah. There's a few people that still are very incredulous. Elon, believe it or not, is incredulous. He's famously said, if the aliens are real, they sure are subtle.
They're very subtle. Bigfoot's subtle, too. Doesn't mean he's not an interdimensional being that could teleport at will.
He knows where the cameras are.
He's an omniscient being.
He shuts down trail
Bigfoot
cams.
is just Jesus Christ, full beard all over.
All right. He's just Woods Jesus. Yeah, that's what he is.
Y'all seen the woods,
He's
Jesus?
a mythical creature that's looking out for humanity, our brothers and sisters. They need our help.
He's a benevolent, kind being. He's got a big heart.
The TikTok craft or Tic Tac craft. Goddamn
Yeah,
TikTok.
because of TikTok. Yeah.
Can't get away from that
Yeah.
word. The Tic Tac craft that was spotted off San Diego. It performed something spectacular in terms of its ability to go from the surface of the water to 60,000 feet in how long?
So less than a second, but there's actually more to it. There was a craft. Remember, I was talking with Commander Fravor before this was public.
Yeah.
There was a craft under the water too. The Tic Tac would drop from 60,000 feet is what they're saying, 60 to 80, but that's the scan volume of the Spy 1 radar. So everybody I've talked with said they were coming from above. They were coming from outer space, dropping down within a second and stopping on a dime and then making the movements Commander Fravor saw, like inside of a glass. Then he said to me in our first talk ever, I'll never forget this, because I'm talking to a fighter pilot and I got to talk fighter pilot, and I don't, and he says to me, it noticed me. And I go, what do you mean it noticed you? And he says, as I was descending rapidly to engage it, it turned its nose and began to intelligently mirror my movements, came right up by me, and he says, faster than you can see, you can't even see a bullet leave a gun. No, it just, bam, shot off. He goes, we don't have anything like that. I wish we did. We don't. Whatever propels that is not a reactionary propulsion system.
Meaning it's not pushing something off the back to get it to go forward.
Like everything
like
else,
fire and explosions.
It's a field propulsion. Yeah, like anything else we know, you got to have something going back to go forward. Rockets, we're still using the same ones from back in the day. This thing instantaneously, without effects of inertia, can move. Now, and that distortion, that's exactly how Bob described these things would work or do work in his opinion. So Commander Fravor got to see it. Now, and these incursions, by the way, look, there's stuff George reports on. There's a lot he doesn't. As a filmmaker myself, people tell me stories all the time. These incursions, it's not a rarity. These are happening to this day. I just heard about one in Guam. Incursions over high security airspace over our weapons systems. And in Guam, there was just recently an incursion. The Pantex facility with the igloos where we hold our nuclear weapons and stuff like that, there are incursions over these. So to George's point, the reason why maybe all of this is secret is not because we can't handle it, people flip out. Maybe we just want to make sure we fucking get this tech first because it's a game changer.
Now, let's talk about the people that have tried to debunk this and why they're off. Because they've made some debunking claims about some of these videos and about the technology that was used to track these things. That's incorrect. Where they don't really understand what they're debunking.
Right.
So please explain that, because that's one of the things that people are immediately going to go to. They're going to go, well, Mick West has already debunked it. And I've read the stuff that he says. It's mental gymnastics to try to explain it the way he's explaining it without recognition of the fact that these things were actively blocking radar. These things were actively blocking tracking systems. These were physical crafts. This is not like a bird.
No.
Or so,
It's
like a lot of the
impossible.
wacky theories that he has are like, I wonder, it's real weird, like that a smart man can make such really bizarre conclusions. Very weird. Almost like someone wants him to do those.
Sure. I mean, look, it's so exciting that we're seeing something and the government saying, okay, these are UFOs. We have not identified them. They have propulsion techniques that we don't have. And we're just talking about the videos.
Let's talk about the debunking, though.
Okay.
Talk about the debunking and what his claims are in the debunking.
Okay, so one that I recently attacked because it was so ridiculous is he was saying that the Go Fast video, which is this object that goes along in a straight line, one of the 3 videos that was released. He said what was probably a bird. That was his first theory.
Let's pull up the Go Fast video.
Yeah. I mean, I recently went deep into talking with Boeing experts who work on these FLIR pods. They're telling me how they work, what they can capture. Why
Explain what a FLIR pod is.
A forward-looking infrared. So basically, on fighter planes, you have a camera.
So here's the video. We're pulling it up right here.
Sure, that's mounted, and it's essentially recording in thermal imagery. These things are. This is not Instagram. These things are weapons systems that are highly trained to be able to accurately represent spatial awareness and to be able to target, enemy combatants. This is not an iPhone, an Instagram. These are weapons for us. So out of the 3 videos, if we just look at this one, although I like the Tic Tac one with Commander Fravor and I like the gimbal one, those are awesome. This one gives us very little information. But the idea that this would be a bird, if you talk to anybody that uses these pods, you can't pinpoint on a bird. You can't lock a weapon system on a freaking bird.
Well, look how fast it's going too.
Well, here's what's so interesting is everybody can debate speed.
So this is where it's locked in on it.
Right.
So the weapon system is locked in on this thing and it's tracking it now.
Right. And they got real excited when they locked it because they said boxed a moving target, right? So here's the deal though. Out of anything I could say about this video, because there's not a lot of information in there, what I can say is that object you're seeing is colder than the surface of the ocean. Now, I looked up the surface of the ocean temperature at that location at that time because we had the information. It was like 65 degrees. What propulsion system? So a bird. A bird is about 100 and let's say 5 degrees, like a seagull. Seagulls can go maybe 15 miles an hour. I don't know how fast they can go. But they wouldn't be colder than the ocean. They'd be hypothermic and dead. It cannot be a bird because what we're seeing is a colder object than the surface of the water. That's why you're seeing it white.
And how fast is it going?
That's under debate. There's different
interpretations.
Yeah. So I'll give you one interpretation about 240 miles an hour. Some people say, and then they can argue, well, the fastest bird in a nosedive could go that fast. So back up. We have an object that is colder than the surface of the ocean. That immediately gets rid of the bird theory because a bird would be hypothermic and drop like a paperweight into the water. It cannot fly at that. So that's the piece of information I would attack that debunking with.
But this video, when you're watching that, if it is going 200 miles an hour, that's not outside of what's possible with spacecraft or aircraft or just planes.
Right, but it's cold.
I understand that.
That's pretty cool.
But it's very interesting. But it's not moving anywhere near as fast as the Tic Tac.
No. This is just something, because this is part, and George can tell you, this was part of a much bigger series of events. So like the gimbal craft itself, that's another debunking thing. They said it's a plane banking away and you're seeing it through thermal. First of all, talk with the pilot. Not fucking so.
This is the gimbal.
Yeah, the gimbal.
He's pulling it up right now. And
so,
how fast is this thing supposed to be going?
The speed, from what I recall, wasn't registered on the radar. It's not that it's going fast. If you talk with the pilots, it was rotating. It was spinning like a top, and for like 11 hours without refueling. I mean, the thing was just sitting out there. This is an occurrence that happened over a course of many, many weeks. Now, when it rotates like that, the debunking theory is that you're seeing a plane bank. So as if our military doesn't know what another plane is. Other planes look very different when you see them through thermal. This thing was self-rotating, and I just did an interview.
And how fast is this, or rather, how warm is this thing supposed to be? Is this supposed to actually be hot?
I am unaware.
Because you're looking at it through thermal, right?
Yeah, I'm unaware of the specifics of that one when it comes to heat. All I know is that it is self-actuating. It is not something that is a glare or flare of a heat signature, making it look like it's turning. The actual craft is self-actuating.
And what is that halo around it?
That's just an artifact of the FLIR thermal. It's not.
The premise that the U.S. government would tell you, all right, look, we're going to release these videos reluctantly. Lou Elizondo is the guy that got them released, and then the U.S. government formally released them a couple of months ago. The idea that the U.S. government would release it, the Pentagon says these are unidentified. If it was a bird or a jet engine, the pilots would not have the kind of reaction that they had that you can hear on the audio.
Yeah.
Our government does not tell members of Congress. The Pentagon doesn't go to the Senate Intelligence Committee, show them those videos and say, yeah, it's unidentified if it isn't. And, you know, the reaction of the pilots, the fact that they were forced to release it to begin with, suggests there really is unidentified.
Why do you think they've addressed it? Why do you think that they have addressed the fact they're studying these things? Why not just continue denying it?
I think they were forced to. And some props to Tom DeLonge. I know you guys had a pretty spirited conversation when he was here, but he created an organization. Lou Elizondo, who ran that program, came forward and brought with him those videos. I saw them 2 days after Lou Elizondo stepped on a stage with Tom and said, I was in charge of the program. He and Chris Mellon have been sort of the engineers of getting that story into the New York Times. That changed everything. As I said, the last 2.5 years, everything has turned on its head. The New York Times covers the story. The result is other media covered as well. They've been ignoring it forever, and that allowed people who keep these secrets. That pressure meant that people in Congress started asking questions. 2 days after the story came out, I interviewed Senator Harry Reid, who was the one who got the money to create that program that became ATIP. And he said his phone had been ringing off the hook from other members of Congress who are now suddenly interested. I didn't know there was a program, they're telling him. How do we learn more about this? It started a series of closed-door briefings on Capitol Hill that continue to this day. The pilots, like Dave Fravor, were hauled before Congress, first in front of the staff of the Senate Intelligence and then Senate Armed Services, and then the elected members, these senators who get briefed on it, and they were impressed, and they wanted more pilots to come in. So it's been going on for 2.5 years, and 2 weeks ago, about a month ago now, the culmination of it, Senator Marco Rubio, who is now the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, drops this bill, and it's the budget for the intelligence budget for the next year, and he includes a UFO provision in there. Congress wants to have a mechanism set up where we get regular briefings from the Pentagon on UFOs. That's an astonishing change of events. It's because of the media pressure and then congressional interest. It made it more acceptable for everybody to pursue the subject matter. It's kind of out of the shadows. And the Pentagon has reacted in fits and starts. So sometimes, as they said to the New York Times, that program ended. Had nothing to do with UFOs. At first they said it did, then they said it didn't. They've admitted Lou Elizondo worked on the program, then they said he didn't. They've said that the OSAP, which is the other program, the mother program that became ATIP, that had nothing to do with UFOs, but it did. So they continue to sort of lie and obfuscate and muddy the waters. But the fact is that there's too much momentum from media and Congress and the public to hide this anymore.